Taking back the Windy City. That is what is on the menu for today. It's good to be back here in studio. Obviously, many of you know that this is not going to stop. The rhythm, the beat is going to continue. The Democrats are imploding, and we as Republicans, conservatives, need to just sit back and let them be. They're they are rated right now where they stand in favorability, approval is it's Submariner. They are going at a rate that I don't know how they recover after everything that has just happened in the last couple of weeks, but they seem to continue to double down. We're seeing that in Chicago. As I said, Brandon Johnson is hovering around 5 or 7% approval rating. JB, for the first time in his tenure, 6.5 years, is now in negative territory. JB himself can't get out of the way. Hey, there you go. On my way from work, listening. Thanks, Ryan. We always appreciate you joining us here on the DPB show. You too can join us and subscribe, like at the different platforms. We're on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. I think I got them all. But yes, taking back the Windy City, that's what Trump is talking about doing. And it's just not Chicago. It's all the metropolitan areas that continue to defy his executive orders as it pertains to sanctuary status, as it pertains to DEI, as it pertains to a plethora of things that have truly caused those once great cities to basically crumble. And not only to crumble, but to be overburdened, overridden with crime. And you know what? If that's going to change, how it's going to change is we're going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think we're starting to see that evidenced in so many different facets of what happens politically. And you know, if you've listened to the DPB show long enough, it is, I say that you might not do politics, but politics is going to do you 24/7, 365. And so it's better, I believe, to either be involved or to sit back and get run over by it, because it is not leaving us. It's going to be a common theme here in Illinois, especially if you live in this great state, the land of Lincoln, Illinois. Of course, you know, I have coined the phrase, the land of make-believe, and that's because we are governed by somebody that truly has come to kill, steal, and destroy. Well, one of the ways that we're going to turn this state around is that we have got to get back to at least a 10-seat difference in the House, and also at least a 5 to 10-seat difference in the Senate. We know that our General Assembly is supermajorities on both sides. They control every statewide office: comptroller, treasurer, attorney general, secretary of state, lieutenant governor, governor. They control 13 of the 17 congressional seats in the state of Illinois. And then they have the 2 U.S. Senate seats. It is time to make some inroads. I do have a special guest today. He is going to take a shot at being the next state rep of the 105th district. He has a very polished, I should say, and steep. He's steeped in the political world. Tim Rustiman has spent over 3 decades serving the people of Woodford County as coroner. Through moments of crisis and calm, he's become a trusted leader known for his integrity, compassion, and accountability. He was born and raised in Central Illinois. Tim has deep roots in the 105th district. If you're wondering where the 105th district is, the 105th district is Woodford, Tazewell County, a little bit of Peoria, Livingston County, and a little bit of McLean County. But mostly the heart of the 105th district is in the Woodford, Livingston, and Tazewell County area. He raised a family here, served in local government, and led Republican Central Committee as chair, which is a task in of itself. Now he's answering the call to serve at the state level, um, to represent rural communities that deserve a steady local voice in Springfield. I'm going to bring him on to the stage here. Here he is. There's Tim Rusterman. Tim, it's good to have you here on the DPB show.
Well, thanks for the invite, David. I'm honored to be a guest on your show this afternoon.
Well, Tim, obviously there's a lot of directions we could go today, but tell the audience why it is that, I used to make this comment, Tim. No one in their right mind should ever want to go to Springfield.
Yeah, that's a valid statement. When Representative Hitzler decided he was not going to run, he reached out to me, and I was at a point in my life where the timing was perfect. My children are raised and gone. I was slowing down a little bit in my business, but yet I still am young enough that I have a lot to offer. My life has been about serving others and serving our community, and I really look at this as one way that I can really serve the constituents of the 105th district. And I think in Springfield, we forget sometimes about the people that send us down there. They are who we work for, and we need to start bringing back the values and whatnot of the people that we serve. And I think, as you stated earlier, if we start doing that, we can bring this state back to where it needs to be. It's so many people say, well, we'll just move away or we're going to leave Illinois. That's not an option for me. My heart's here, my family's here, my business is here. I'm not a quitter. I want to stay, and I want to bring some good values back to this district.
Well, Tim, obviously you brought that up, and I did not mention that in your introduction. Tim, you are a business owner. You have funeral homes. You have funeral homes in how many counties? How many locations?
Well, I personally own interest in 21 different funeral locations. But we recently have done some rearranging several months ago within the organization so that, I'm really, my responsibility has been way back, if you will. I'm more or less just serving families and working funerals, the things I really enjoy doing. I've divested myself of, the HR issues and the maintenance issues and things like that. So once again, when this opportunity arose, I thought it's just perfect from every aspect.
And what a great profession to be in, because obviously you are encountering people at a time in their life when they have experienced the loss of a loved one, of a friend, of a relative, whomever. And that is really part of, I believe, representing people. I mean, to
Yeah.
be present and able to at least comfort people in a time of need.
Right. It's like I've said for my whole career, I've dealt with a lot of different types of deaths, and when you lose somebody you love, it's not something that you're going to get over. People will constantly say, "Oh, you'll get over it." That's not the case. You learn to live your life without that loved one in it, and it defines you. Unfortunately, in my life, my first wife passed away at 42 and left me with 3 young children, and I explained that really to them, the fact that this moment in our life, though we're very sad, it's going to define us, and we can either let it define us in a negative way or in a positive way. And I'm very proud of my 3 children, the way they've grown up, and they're all great people in the community, and I'm extremely proud of them. But you're right, serving families in the funeral business there's no 2 days the same. Everyone's different, and but once again, it's you hope that by your actions within their life in that time, that you have made it somewhat a little easier.
You know what? Family first. Well, I obviously say God first, then family, and then the rest of this craziness that we call the political spectrum. And it is a spectrum. The political industry is on the spectrum. Tim, so you're embarking into this world of politics. You've already been somewhat steeped in it, as I said in your introduction, as the county chair. You understand. You've walked a lot of roads with a lot of candidates. You've seen a lot happen in at least the past 20 years. Illinois used to be a Republican state, and now we find ourselves as a state that, and I don't believe it shifted as far as most people think. I believe that downstate, we still hold an advantage in the Republican Party. But so you've seen a lot in your time as county chair. What is it going to take? My friend Jim Rule, who is also a county chair, says that culture and leadership is what we're lacking currently in the state of Illinois.
I agree. I
Is
agree
that
with that.
true?
Yeah. It's David. I think we need to get away from maybe the politics side of things and maybe start being more like statesmen again and make the people that we represent proud of us. Um, I, I think the divide has become very, very great, and the far left has gotten very, very far left, if you will. Some of their ideas are absolutely absurd, and in my career in politics, some of these ideas the far left has, I would have never ever thought that would come out of somebody's mouth, and it
Mm.
does. Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of that is, we have this energy crisis. I know that Doug Burgum in the cabinet meeting today at the White House was talking about that. Um, we decided to go all in here in Illinois for not only wind energy, but for solar energy, and it has kind of created, well, a plethora of problems. But now we're starting to see the spiking. We're seeing this, what I believe is a terrible, inhumane thing to do to the least of these, especially people who are struggling. As we approach Labor Day, those who are laboring for their livelihood, and
Yeah.
they're just trying to make ends meet, and they can't even pay their electric bills.
No, and when I'm out on the campaign trail, that's probably the number one thing I'm hearing is, and it begins with taxes as well, but the green energy that everyone thought was going to be the saving grace has turned out to be almost the kiss of death. I mean, everybody's Ameren bills are going up, and we've closed down many coal-fired electrical plants, and we're going solar and wind energy, and I'm not against all of that, but I think it was pushed on us way too quick. And obviously, like you just said, we're feeling the results from that. And these organizations or companies, if you will, that are supplying these products to our homes and our communities, they're going to make us pay to get this conversion done. And I don't think it can possibly be done.
Well, we've got a long way to go, and we've got a long way to go as a Republican Party because, as I mentioned earlier, and I've said it many times on my show, we have 118 state rep districts in the 102 counties of Illinois, and we have 59 Senate seats. Currently, the Republicans are sitting with 40 of those in the House, and they're sitting with 19 in the Senate. So it puts us about at 30% of the seats in both of those chambers. And unfortunately, and I've heard this over and over and over by different state representatives that think like we do, that they can't even get bills out of committee, alone let try to be actively involved in legislating a difference when it comes to energy, the sanctuary status of the state, crime and what is currently happening there, the Second Amendment and everything that the General Assembly has done to squash the rights, which is protected by our Constitution for the Second Amendment. So, Tim, how do you, with this in ahead of you, because ultimately the 105th district is not going to see opposition from the Democrat Party. I'm not saying they won't put forth a candidate, but the district itself is a Republican district. So it's a safe seat for Republicans. We're not going to lose ground out of that total of 40 seats. But you see this ahead of you going into Springfield. What can you do to impact that? With your experience as the county chair, as the county coroner, working with families in the funeral business, what can you do you believe, when you get down to Springfield?
Well, I think first of all, like I said earlier, I want to I want the people that are my fellow colleagues to look at me and say, that guy cares about the people that he represents. He's here to serve them. And I think really as Republicans, first of all, we need to quit, putting our fellow Republicans through some type of litmus test.
Mhm,
And as you said, well, let's get some seats at the table.
mhm,
Then we could maybe start, doing a purity test and saying this guy can go. And that, but we're in such a super minority that the Democrats rule the roost. But I think if I can see other Democrats look at me and say, hey, he's a pretty good guy. He represents his constituency, and they seem to support him. Hopefully, we can get somebody to buy into some of this. A lot of the Democrats that are elected to the General Assembly, they're not representing the people from their district. They're just
mhm,
winning elections,
mhm,
and they can be beat. As long as the Republicans can get on some of the same pages of ballot harvesting and things like this. But some of the more liberal state representatives are not representing their people. They just get elected at election time.
We found that out. I told this story about being on outside of chambers during legislative session, and there was a bill that was in front, and it had to do with parental consent for minors as it pertained to uh, abortions. And
Mhm.
granted, I mean, we could go for days of talking about where the state of Illinois is, but we don't have to because it's decided law in the state of Illinois. And this particular bill that was put forth, we called a state rep from up north out of chambers and wanted to find out because we knew that he was a practicing Catholic. And so we asked him a straight question. We said, what does your bishop say about you as far as your vote on this bill? And he says, well, the bishop says I can't support it. And he said, but my wife says I have to vote for it. And I said, why does your wife say you have to vote for it? And he said, because she said I need this job. And he said, and you don't realize at that time Michael Madigan was the Speaker of the House. He said, Michael Madigan will put somebody in to run against me in a nanosecond if I dare to cross the line. And so they weren't even shy about sharing why it is they're there. They weren't there to necessarily represent, as you said, their constituents.
Yes.
They were representing the ideology, the theme of what the narrative of how they've maneuvered around this state for almost, I believe, Tim, and maybe you correct me, because I know that in 1999, I remember Keith Summers, former state representative Keith Summers from over in the Morton area,
Mhm.
tell me that they had a surplus in Illinois in 1999. We weren't in the red until about 2001. But so this has been going on for a long time that they've controlled the narrative. Um, and that's what I'm kind of, I guess, digging for is how do we change the tide? How do we get around some of these legislative problems that are glaring? I mean, the Republicans didn't create the energy crisis that we face in
Right.
Illinois. They didn't create the sanctuary state. I don't know any Republican that voted for sanctuary status. They didn't create um, a plethora of other issues that we're facing here in Illinois: the crime, the defund police, the educational crisis in the state. I mean, but the Democrats have. How can we bring that to light, to shine a light on it, I should say?
Well, I think we need to get to some of these Democrat districts and work a little harder. As you just gave your examples, you think that the people that are Democrats enjoy putting the gas nozzle in their car and paying a 48 cents a gallon
Mm,
gas tax and then pay taxes on top of that? There's a lot of issues that your average Democrat cannot support. There is no way they support that kind of behavior. And then those taxes upon taxes upon taxes, then they go to things such as illegal immigration and things like that. I don't think, at least the Democrats I speak to, they don't support that kind of behavior. But come election time, they're just better at campaigning, I guess, if you will, than what we are. And we as Republicans need to step up our game. And I've always said, David, the Democrats seem to focus when they do their redistricting or whatnot on universities and college campuses. Not every college student is a Democrat.
Hmm.
And I think if we educate them and say, hey, guys and gals, vote your heart, vote your conscience. Don't vote based upon extra credit or something like that. And I think we can turn this state around. And as you said early on, they're starting to implode, not just here locally, but nationally, and it's going to happen.
Tim, one of the things that will be decided in the General Assembly as we start moving towards the election of 26 and then this new session and the seating of the new General Assembly in 27 is that you guys will be, you'll be choosing a new leader, and or you will continue to keep the same leader. One of the things that many people have called for is the current leader of the minority leader of the General Assembly in the House and in the Senate, not as much of a outcry for the Senate minority leader to resign, but the minority leader of the House to step aside because they realize the direction that we're going. As you mentioned, if we're going to capture seats, we got to have a plan of doing that. And right now, I don't believe that we have a plan. Do you see a plan in Illinois to take
No,
back seats?
no, I don't, David. And really, what's opened my eyes the most since I've announced I'm going to run for this position is the division in Springfield within our own party. It's the one caucus reaches out to you, then the next caucus reaches out to you, then the next political operative reaches out to you, and I want to go to Springfield, and I'm not gonna be embedded to anybody. I want to represent my district and my people and our leadership. If it needs to be changed, I agree, it needs to change, because we're either holding our own or going backwards, and it's not acceptable to me.
Well, of course, sometimes in studio, yours truly has little faux pas, and I knock my camera offline. But I'm going to get myself back on here in a minute. But Tim, so and I know that it's hard to sometimes to handle questions like this because here you are, you're just trying to get the signatures, which are required in order for you to present the packet to be a candidate, to be on the ballot for the primary of 2026.
Right.
But at the same time, the work that's done as a candidate is the work that I believe will be done when you win the election in November, and then, of course, take your seat in the General Assembly and start doing the people's business, which unfortunately, all these things seem to be interwoven and they don't even allow us an opportunity. As my wife was pointing out earlier today, Mrs. Producer, it is truly that fire hose drinking out of a fire hose.
Oh yeah.
There are so many things happening. I've already seen a little bit of that with you and your support team, and it's go 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 go. It's nonstop. It will be that way for another year, but to have that passion of running and working on behalf of the people of the 105th district, knowing what we face, the deficits that we face here in Illinois. How do you see, what are some of the things in some of the areas you believe we can make some inroads in right out of the gate as you take over in the 105th?
The new legislation of children having to have a mental fitness exam. I think there can be some compromise there. We got to start letting our parents be parents and letting them raise their children how they desire. So I think we can make some inroads there. The Safety Act, it's got its flaws. The judges throughout the state, it depends upon the judge, a conservative judge versus a liberal judge on whether or not somebody's going to be incarcerated. I think there's some ways in the Safety Act we could start, chipping away. We're not gonna change it overnight. I know that. And with that being said, I'm not planning on going down to Springfield like some of these people do and setting up a home down there. I want to go down there. I'm going to do my part, and I'm going to fight to put a little bit of religion back into the General Assembly, and let our people raise their children. And if I can accomplish any of that, then my goals have been fulfilled. But I know I'm a realist. I know that I'm not going to switch it overnight. But those two items I mentioned, earlier are some ways I think we could begin. We need to explain to the Democrats that some of their rules and laws and regulations and their policy with immigration is not good for our state.
Well, and I think they dug that hole. As I said, JB, Governor Pritzker, keeps doubling down,
Yeah.
not only because of his aspirations, I think, to run for president, but today he's with a group, and their battle cry is they're a unified front, and they're going to stop, because the president, or I should say, they're going to stop the president from coming in to one of the most crime-ridden cities in the United States. Whether it ranks as number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it really is irrelevant. I mean, things that are going on in Chicago, and how does that impact downstate Illinois? Well, there is some residual effect, but for the most part, the only impact that it really has in downstate is people in downstate Illinois choose not to go to the city as often as they used to. And I know one thing that I always enjoyed as a young person was going at the holiday season to Chicago. I enjoyed going to Wrigley Field. I enjoyed going to Soldier Field. I enjoyed going to Lake Michigan. In fact, the governor himself was walking along Lake Michigan yesterday and just reminiscing how wonderful it was and that there was no crime. That is not real. That is not reality. And it's unfortunate that I think that even, as Democrats of old, you might differ on how you see issues, but when you totally take and flip these issues into all out lies, because there is crime in Chicago. It's at a level, it's reported every weekend, especially in some of the news sources that are covering him right now in his pushback against President Trump. They report that there are 40, 50, 60 people that have been shot over a given weekend, especially during the summer months. And yet that goes without saying almost, and the governor never brings it up, nor does the mayor of Chicago.
Oh, and I have friends at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, of course, and the body count doesn't lie.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not a safe place to be. I'll agree with you. Yeah.
When you're dead, you're dead.
That's
right.
That's right.
You know this, and you're right. Those statistics don't lie. Now you can lie about the statistics. You can bury police reports. You can try to make things appear, as I mentioned, the land of make believe. That's what I call Illinois now. It used to be the land of Lincoln, but the land of make believe. We made believed that everything is okay, that this is truly the good ship lollipop, that we don't have problems in Illinois. I see here in the comment section, Mrs. Producer was good to put up a couple of statistics that we have 111 billion in unfunded pension liability. And I believe that's a conservative number, because we have unfunded and underfunded our 5 largest public pensions. And now we won't even make a full interest payment, Tim, this year. And we have never made a full interest payment. The interest alone on the debt in Illinois is $10 billion, which is about 20% of the budget that JB, Governor Pritzker, just signed into law.
Yeah. I mean, well, and where did they come up with some of these revenue sources that they're putting in this last budget?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a fund sweep of every fund that exists in Springfield, but I think their revenue numbers are very incorrect. So for him to say his budget's balanced, I don't think that's going to happen. Well, we know it's not going to happen. They're putting us deeper in a hole, and it's going to be our children and our grandchildren who I feel sorry for.
Well, and as you mentioned, balancing a budget is really just trying to appropriate and account for every dollar that you have allocated. So to say about you have a balanced budget and you've raised the amount that you're spending by almost 18 billion since you took over the position as governor, yeah, you can balance a budget, just keep raising the debt
Right.
and keep spending more money that you don't have. And I think that that is going to come to roost. I think we don't have a choice. I know that the city of Chicago and Brandon Johnson has been out there screaming that he's going to have to definitely find other sources of revenue, as the state of Illinois is, because you can only live off of borrowed money and the backs of the working folks, which is in Illinois. Unfortunately, as we approach Labor Day, the amount of workers are dwindling. Now, they have been supplemented to some degree with migrant workers, whether that be illegal or legal migrant workers, and they're trying to stopgap some of the places where we are really hemorrhaging and bleeding at a rate that yeah. I mean, as a coroner, I'm not going to say Illinois is dead economically yet, but I think at the very least we're on some life support.
Oh yeah. The pulse is going away. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. We can't keep this up. I mean, we can't manage our household finances like this. I don't know why we think we can manage our government like this. You know,
Well, and I think you hit upon that. Every household has to be responsible for the tax bill that comes. We see a governor like Governor DeSantis in Florida trying to do away with the property tax. Now, granted, property tax is a little lower in the state of Florida because they do other things structurally, fiscally to to overcome some of that. Yes, they are one of the most traveled states in the union, so that helps that they have the vacationers that go there. But Illinois also at the crossroads has unbelievable resources, not only from the agribusiness standpoint, the highways and byways were the crossroads of some of the greatest states in the union. And we're at the heart of it, but yet we don't seem to really catapult, which I believe is something that needs to be put forth. If we had a CEO, uh, other than the governor that's currently there, because I do believe that he's had every opportunity to make it work in Illinois and it's not working. He hasn't changed one thing. If we had a new corporate takeover in Illinois, I think the difference that would come is the first things first is they would try to to get control of the spending and create an environment where people would stay and businesses would come back to Illinois.
oh, I think it's salvageable. I mean, I wouldn't be on this endeavor if I didn't think it was, and I want to do my part in it. And we have a beautiful state. We have a lot to offer from, like, our business perspective. But we're not right now attracting any new businesses, and people are leaving our state at an all-time high. And JB should be on the side of the U-Haul truck.
Yeah.
He's their biggest marketing guy,
Yeah.
and it's not good. Not everybody wants to pack up and move. I have friends, oh, I bought property here, property there, and my taxes are cheap, and that's fine and dandy, but I'm not going to do that. I want to stay here and fight for it.
Mrs. Producer has put up there, according to chicagopolice.org, crime complaints, murder, sex, assault, robbery, aggravated battery, burglary, theft, vehicle theft have gone from 4,698 in 2021 to 6,685 in 2025. But according to the land of make believe and Governor Pritzker, crime is down. It's way
Right.
down. It's going down. In fact, there is no crime. I don't see why it is that the president of the United States would even spend any resources to bring people. In fact, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, said that the reason that there are people being killed, murdered, robbed in the streets of Chicago is because we don't have affordable housing. If we had affordable housing, people wouldn't do things like that.
That's totally not true. My middle son is a police officer. He has his degree in criminal justice, and I've talked to him quite a bit about the the attitude of our police officers, whether it's here locally or in Chicago and Cook County, they feel like, they have been victimized as well. I think our law enforcement went from being proactive to trying to keep us safe to now they're more reactive and they're answering calls of service. And it's the convicted thug beats the police officer out of the jail cell after he's writing his report.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's not a good situation. The respect for law enforcement is out the window. The respect for teachers and our clergy, it's not there. And
Yeah.
I don't know why these guys like Johnson and Pritzker think that the path we're on is the correct one, because it's definitely not.
Well, I do feel that there is a new incarceration is racist, Brandon Johnson. Mrs. Producer has some of the best ones.
Yeah,
Incarceration is
yeah,
racist.
yeah.
Well, everything is racist. But that gets back to leadership. I did notice the gathering around Governor Pritzker and Brandon Johnson at the podium in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, talking about this unity front that they are presenting against the president and his wishes to put, to create safe streets in Chicago again, to clean up Chicago. And most of those men are like-minded with the governor. And I do see a sense of renewal with men being raised up here in Illinois. And I do believe that there's going to be a force. I do believe that fathers, grandfathers, young men have said enough's enough. If this is going to happen, we're going to have to push ourselves into the limelight, into the stage of where these people are. We need to combat them. I would have loved to seen anyone stand up and say, Governor Pritzker, I get what you're saying, but you're lying, and I did see that when we had the last gubernatorial debate. I'd like to see more of that back and forth saying that just isn't true, and truly fighting for the people of Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, why does he think that is it? I mean, why does he think his lies are acceptable and we should believe him? Because
Yeah.
we all know they're lies.
Yeah.
Are the Democrats that vulnerable that they just whatever he says they think is the gospel?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they must.
Well, and you can't what is that song? It just was on my tongue, but my lion eyes, you
Right.
believe my lion eyes, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's happening. Well, Tim, I know that you're not someone that spends a lot of time on podcasts, so I do appreciate the fact that you've come on the DPB show today. Right now, as it stands, wait a second, Berwin Bob, what did you say, Berwin? Anybody remember federally funded Cabrini Green, how that worked?
That came here locally. Yeah, we know what that's about.
Bob, you guys kicked them out of Chicago in Cook County, and they ended up in McLean County and Tazewell County and Woodford County.
Yeah.
No, we found out what the impact was of Cabrini Green. You guys just did. They talk about the replacement theory when it came to bringing people over the southern border over the last 10 years. Well, that's kind of what the replacement theory for Cabrini Green was. You guys just put them on buses and sent them down to central Illinois. So no, we understand.
Out of sight, out of mind.
But I began to say, Tim, it doesn't appear at this time that you are going to have anyone enter the primary. I'm sure there, as we talked about, there are people who are out there doing their due diligence on trying to figure out how to get somebody to run against you.
Certainly.
I believe that any money spent at this time on a safe seat, especially one that's open, we're not talking about the incumbent still there and people are dissatisfied with the incumbent.
Right.
I mean, there are people who, and myself included, there were times when I didn't necessarily agree with Representative Tipsord on some of the legislation that he chose to get behind. I chalked it up to that he was still new in the process. But still, even if Dennis did not choose to move on and ran again, I don't think someone opposing him would be money well spent.
I totally agree with that.
And I think that's where we're kind of at with you. You've come out early, you've declared, and by all means, I believe in primaries.
Right.
But at this point, this isn't a primary kind of environment, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody. If somebody wants to jump in, by all means. Unfortunately, you need to do it quick. I had a friend who wanted to be a state rep, and he waited and waited and waited and waited, and he didn't even win his own county, and he should have.
Right.
And I know you know who that is, and I am not going to speak his name
Right.
to protect the innocent, but you've already come out. You're not ashamed of proclaiming that this is what you want to do
Right.
and this is where you're going. Tim, what can the audience, the people that are going to see this, what can they do and how can they help you be a better candidate for state rep?
Well, first of all, I mean, obviously, I asked for their vote if they, can vote for me in the 105th, or tell their friends and family, to support us. I'm going to make them proud. I want to hear from the constituents. I know if I'm fortunate enough to win, then I am put there by the people, and I will represent the people. And I want to hear from all of my Republican friends on their thoughts and opinions. Obviously, it'll make me a better person and a better representative. With that being said, then I'm willing to be part of the team and fight to get some of these blue districts, maybe till we can at least get them somewhat red again or win them, and change some of the direction of the state. So I look at this as not only the state representative of the 105th, but it's a little bit bigger picture than that. I really want to make a difference. There's been 2 or 3 cycles I've passed. Back when Representative Bennett retired, they were really asking me to run, and the timing wasn't right. And this time, when Dennis called me, I think that the good Lord put this in my heart, and he said it's time. Everything is in order, and I told him immediately that's what I want to do, and that's why our campaign is out strong at the very beginning here. We're not going to let up. I can do this till March. I've been in campaigns before, and I'm going to win this primary. And if someone gets talked into running against me, I think their friends aren't being true friends, because it's a lot of work. And, if your heart's not in it, you're not going to do it.
Well, and it's a lot of work. And like you had just mentioned, we need to take the limited resources we have,
right,
and really focus on places where we don't have a candidate representing the Republican Party. And you're right. We need to equip as many people as we can with iPads and get them out there. I understand people talk about vote by mail and they talk about early voting. I don't like it either.
right,
Unfortunately, as Mrs. Producer will tell you, the only way the Democrats are going to change vote by mail in the state of Illinois for state races is if we become better at collecting ballots than they are. Then they will get real interested in making sure that they change it. But until we beat them, and they beat us at the punch every time,
right,
we're not going to win that battle. So we need every resource we can get, every dollar, every volunteer, every person to engage in the process of getting people to either get a early ballot, a vote by mail ballot, or to be somebody that's volunteering to help go and get those ballots collected, because this is what we're up against, and we're up against it from Chicago all the way down to Olney, Illinois, and beyond. It's everywhere in the state of Illinois. We need more people to get out to the polls.
Yep. Well, David, I want to thank you and the Mrs. Producer for this opportunity. You guys have enlightened me as much as I hope I have enlightened you, and I want to be a part of the solution here. And please don't be afraid to reach out if you need it.
Well, we're going to get you back on here as the campaign season continues to build. It's exciting to see people get on and talk about what they're experiencing out there, what they're seeing. So, Tim, we're definitely going to get you back. Just real quick, I know Mrs. Producer is going to put it up there. If you want to get in contact with him, be a part of his campaign, how do they do that, Tim?
Go to Tim Rustman, RUESTMAN.com, and there's a tab on there you can send us a message.
Well, and Tim is trying to gather signatures. That's part of what he needs to do. So if you live in the 105th, and you can find out if you're in the 105th district. There's a couple different websites that allow you to do that. You put your address in at the illinois.gov. You can click on the General Assembly, put your address in. They will tell you what district you're in, county boards, things like that. I think I got that address right with the Illinois site. And get in touch with Tim, obviously, or go to his campaign page, and he'll look up your address, and I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come to your house and get a signature.
You better believe it. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim. We're going to continue with taking back the Windy City. We shall see you sooner than later, my friend.
Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
All right. You take care.
Bye.
Well, it was good to have Tim. Obviously, the campaign season is upon us. And, that's something that we're going to continue to walk out day in, day out. As I mentioned, taking back the Windy City. I think that's a big part of Illinois. And I know there's many movements, Flip Illinois Red or Flip Chicago Red. And P. Ray is a very talented person up there that does radio. I've met her on many different occasions. Go and like and subscribe. And she spells it P-E-E space Ray. P. Ray is somebody that is moving things along in Chicago, but Chicago is a battleground. It's a place where we need to make inroads. We need to be hitting on all cylinders, as Tim and I just mentioned. There's a lot of work to do, and we've got to be about that work. I have this renewed optimism, and it comes like Tim had talked about. It's faith-based, folks. God has given us all the tools we need. He's given us an awareness. He's given us prophetic messages. I mean, I was just reading one from my friend Andrew Whalen. He is seeing things. He's hearing things in his prayer life. The Lord, the Holy Spirit is speaking to him. I think the Holy Spirit is speaking to all of us. We need to tune in. We need to listen. There is not a place on this earth that is lost to a point that it can't be found. It can't be regained. It can't be restored, transformed. We need transformation in the state of Illinois. But the beautiful thing about it, folks, I mean, go out, listen to anything. Just Google or go to Facebook and pull up J.B. Pritzker's page. Go to X and just put in JB and watch what the Democrats are doing right before our eyes. They truly are. I'm almost wondering if I don't know. I think it's because they don't have a plan to move the country as Trump did. So the only thing they have, Trump is hitting and growing this country, hitting on all cylinders. Things that he said would work, like the tariffs. They worked, even though everyone said they wouldn't work. Things like energy, things like companies returning to the United States, investing in the United States are happening. The border's closed. Washington, D.C., I just saw the clip of J.D. Vance. Washington, D.C. has had a murder in their city at least every other day for who knows how long. I think they were saying it was like 20 years or something like that. Over the last 20 days, they have not had one murder. See, folks, this can be reality. And this is what they're pushing back. Brandon Johnson doesn't want safe streets in Chicago. Brandon Johnson, as I mentioned to Tim, he wants affordable housing. Does he really want affordable housing? Because that is an issue, right? Housing is expensive. I know this. I happen to be a real estate broker in the state of Illinois. I know the cost of building. I know the cost of owning. I know what a mortgage is. No, a good percentage of people have not been informed to the point that they can have a house. Do we need more housing? Yes. Do we have enough housing? Yes. What we need also to do is to remove people from the country who have been afforded housing without having citizenship. That's unfortunate. That creates a housing crisis. That it creates a shortfall of affordable housing. All these things can be solved. There are solutions. And no, I don't want anybody sleeping on the street. No, I don't believe our homeless crisis is actually a crisis of anything other than mental illness and addiction. Most people who are homeless are either mentally ill or addicted. It's very rare that you find somebody that just flat out is homeless because and I got to mention this. Most homeless people that I know, and I've worked with the homeless people now here in my community for many years, most of them, they enjoy being homeless, partly because they're mentally ill. The other thing is they have some good reasons for not having a home. They like the freedom. They don't want the control that comes with owning a home. I had a gentleman, his name was Todd, hangs around downtown Bloomington towards the old courthouse. He graduated around the time I did from high school, so we're about the same age. That was his beef. He actually was a vet from Vietnam, or not Vietnam, just past Vietnam. He went to serve his country. He went in right after, high school. And I don't know why I said Vietnam. That came out wrong. I have so many people that I know. I do have friends who are vets who were part of Vietnam, and yes, they're living on the streets. A lot of vets, because of a whole gamut of reasons, have turned to living on the streets. These things are still solvable. We need to find places for people. That's the overarching message, especially Americans. We shouldn't have a homeless crisis in our community of veterans, people who have raised their right hand and swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That should not even be a thing, but it is. It's time we start taking care of these things. If you have an opportunity, go watch the cabinet meeting today. These people are working around the clock to make America great again, to make America better. And what is happening? They're getting pushback from people who support criminal activity. They must, right? They're against you arresting criminals. They're for open borders. They're for sanctuary status. They're for organized crime, meaning organized crime. That's what these cartels are. They want to support the gangbangers. They are for the DEI, which has inundated our armed forces, which now Pete Hegseth has taken control of that. They are going back to being single focus in what we do as the Department of War, as President Trump calls it. That's what George Washington used to call it. There's only one reason: you want to have strength. Peace through strength comes because of readiness, preparedness, and the ability to fight. No, we don't want to fight. We don't want to be in endless wars. We want to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, this country, from domestic and foreign threats. Right now, we're having more domestic threats than foreign threats. People on the world stage see what has transpired here because of the election of Donald J. Trump. He told us through a series of 96 rallies that these are the principles that he's running on. And that's what he's done. He's delivered upon the promises he's made, and he's going to continue. None of those people sitting around that table today in the cabinet meeting is taking the foot off the accelerator. And I encourage you not to take the foot off the accelerator. Become part of the process. On the homelessness issue, I have a niece, been walking the streets of Chicago and now New York for years. She doesn't want to do anything else now. It's sad, Bob. And it can become a way of life. You're right. And I yeah, no, Bob, people have figured out how to live without having a home. But we don't talk about that. We don't address that. Um, and you know what? We do live in a country that's free. Now, where a homeless person sleeps at night, there are rules and regulations, right? But I think there are also solutions to all of it. And some of it, we just have to pray. We have to pray that these things they will take care of themselves, and they will, if we go about doing the work of creating a better place to live. And some of those people, they might snap out of it. We've created a crazy place where people don't understand life here on this earth, life in the United States of America. And that's what we need to change. It's good to see a candidate like Tim Rusterman. Obviously, it was good to have him on the show today. We're going to continue to do that. There are other candidates who are stepping up. As we've mentioned many times over, folks, we've got a lot of work to do in Illinois. And I'm looking for people, if you know of anybody or would like to be part of volunteering to turn this state red. And it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next election cycle or the following election cycle of 28. But I do believe we can make a major transformation by the 2030. That's what I'm kind of working towards. I hope you are. We are going to be back here on Thursday, but before that, let's go ahead and end this awesome show in prayer. Dear eternal and gracious Father, we thank you. We pray, Lord, that you continue to raise up men and women of faith who are willing to be bold and courageous and lead this state. Lord, there's something special about Illinois. I know you have spoken to many people, specifically the word you gave Andrew Whalen, how powerful that is. Lord, you're raising up Cyruses. You're raising up leaders. Let us be bold, like I said, and courageous, Lord. Give us Lord, you've given us the ability. You've given us everything. You've given us the ultimate, your son, Jesus Christ. And it's the power that comes through this Holy Spirit that we can tackle anything and everything as long as we do it in your precious name. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to do the DPB show. Thank you for all of the people who will hear these messages. What a great honor it is to serve you. Thank you. In the precious name of your son, we pray. Amen. All right. I love you. Jesus loves you more. We will see you back here, and it will seem like just in 2 seconds on Thursday at 4 o'clock. Be well and farewell. We'll see you then.